Now the Republicans have control of the Senate. What issues are they going to take up? And how quickly will they get the ball rolling? Oklahoma Congressman and Senator-elect James Lankford won retiring Tom Coburn's seat with 68% of the vote on Tuesday. I'd say that's pretty significant. I spoke to him earlier. Here's that conversation. Congressman, you had quite the victory in Oklahoma, becoming the next United States senator from there. First of all, let's talk about how surprised were you that these races in a lot of the key states, they weren't even close. They were blowouts.
Right. Yeah, that was really, really good to see. They kept talking about even if Republicans win, it's not really a wave. That's hard to ignore the wave when the margins got so large in so many states and so quickly. Arkansas, that they said was going to be very close. Colorado, they thought was going to be very close. Multiple others. Mitch McConnell even. They called Mitch McConnell's race within about 4 minutes after the polls closed there, in a race they said he would probably lose. Multiple races turned really rapidly as the country all decided they'd look at the polls and say, this is the direction we want the country to go.
When the president had his news conference, I kind of got the impression that he didn't really fully understand what had happened. What was your assessment listening to President Obama in the post-mortem of the election?
Yeah, the most jarring part of it was he's not going to listen to the one-third of the voters, one-third of Americans that actually voted. He wants to listen to the two-thirds that didn't actually vote. To me, that was the most jarring disenfranchisement of voters I've ever seen. It was basically the people that voted don't count. I'm going to listen to the people that I'm going to pretend actually would have supported me if they did show up to vote, and I'm just going to pay attention only to them. I go back to 6 years ago, his famous statement of elections have consequences, and suddenly he looks at this election and says, unless I don't want elections to have consequences, then I'm going to ignore the results. So our job is still the same. We're still going to legislate. We've got to bring piece of legislation. His job is to be the president, and we're going to try to do that.
One of the big differences now, Republicans have the House and the Senate. And right. I think a lot of people are wondering, will there be an aggressive legislative agenda that's going to be put forth? I mean, this is a classic. The dog has chased the car. Now you've caught it. What do you do with it?
Right. Well, I can tell you where I would like to start. We have 387 bills that I was part of in the House of Representatives passing, sending over the Senate that the Senate has never even debated. That's a great starting point for us. Those are environmental issues. Those are Obamacare issues. Those are all sorts of freedom issues. Those are business issues and tax issues. Basic things that the American people want. Many of them had Democrat support as well. We passed them in the House. The Senate's never even debated them. Let's bring those up in the Senate. Let's get those passed. We already know the House can pass them, and let's start stacking things up on the president's desk. Those things he would have to explain to the American people why so many people in the country want it, but he's going to veto it. And I don't think he can, and I don't think he will.
You know, I'm not hearing you say that this is going to be one little bill and dribble out another one, but you're going to put a lot of stuff in front of the president and say, make a choice, take some leadership.
Right. That's exactly right. He's the president. He is a part of the legislative process. The House and the Senate has a responsibility to write the law. He has the final decision. That's the way the Constitution writes it, whether he wants to try to veto it or not. I think we set a lot of great bills on his desk, Keystone Pipeline and multiple others, that I can tell you overwhelmingly the American people cannot understand why this has not already been done. And the reason it's not been done is because Harry Reid won't even allow debate on it. Well, that's not an issue anymore. Now it's time to bring it up. Let's get it passed and start stacking it up on the president's desk. Bill Clinton vetoed twice welfare reform before he finally had to sign it because the American people said, no, we really do want to reform the welfare system. Finally got that done. Now when he goes out on the stump, he brags about the changes on it. Well, let's do the same thing as well.
Big news coming out of Friday. Supreme Court says that they're going to take up this case of Obamacare subsidies. Congressman, that would pretty well just gut Obamacare if the subsidies were taken away. How?
It absolutely would.
Yeah, so let's walk through why that becomes such an incredibly big issue. It may mean that Congress doesn't have to deal with the repeal of Obamacare. It would repeal itself by virtue of a court order.
It would, actually, in many ways, because it would collapse in on itself, which is what many of us have said. The system is built in such a way it can't be sustained. Our state, and my Attorney General Scott Pruitt and multiple folks within our state, Virginia and other states as well, all said we do not want to take the Obamacare requirements that are coming down. We don't want those requirements. When we rejected it, a federal subsidy was then placed in our state, and the federal government had oversight of that. What we said was, no, we're not going to take that. It's going to be a state-run exchange program. Well, the way the law is written, in the clear writing of the law, you can't do that. The federal government can't do penalties and subsidies when there's a federal exchange, only a state exchange. Now, that may be really technical, but if you're going to actually follow the text of a poorly written, terrible, bad policy law, then that's the way the law is set up. Our state, 32 other states, don't have to be under the Obamacare subsidy and penalty mandates. Other states that chose to do a state-run exchange, they do, like California, New York. Well, obviously, that's not going to work to only have half the country do it and half the country not. The complexity of it is, though, the Supreme Court has to decide one simple thing. Does the law say what the law says, or does the law say what the president wants it to say? We say the law says what the law says. The president can't say, I don't like the way the law is written, so I'm just going to change it to what I want it to be.
A lot of people are saying that this election, the midterm, is going to make it easier for Republicans in 2016. But I'm of the opinion that if Republicans don't do something with the power that they've just been handed, that it's not going to make it easier. Love to get your thoughts.
No, I would agree on that completely, Governor. The issue is people didn't just not like Democrats, and so they put in Republicans. Millions of people around the country said this is a better set of ideas. We want local choice. We want state control of these issues. We don't want the federal government in every part of our life. We don't want the federal government reaching into the EPA and to our families and to our businesses and tweaking the tax law all the time. Just set the boundaries and walk away and let states and families and churches take the lead in each community. That's a better set of ideas. And for Republicans, our responsibility now is to pass pieces of legislation, set it on the president's desk, and to be able to begin to implement that philosophy that millions of Americans agree with. The answers to the nation's problems aren't coming out of Washington, D.C. The problems in the nation right now are coming out of Washington, D.C. So let's turn back out the authority back to the states and to local leadership, families, and churches, and let's see where the nation goes. I think she takes off is where it goes. And so I think that's very important for us in the days ahead.
Congressman, congratulations on election to the Senate. Great to have you here, and hope
Thanks,
you get
Governor.
some rest. You've had a long election season. You deserve a little time off.
Well, thanks. I don't know if we'll get that. We've got a little bit of work to do. Now the job interview is over. We've got to actually do the job.
Well, we're delighted to have had Senator James Lankford on our show.